What's up, guys? Are you tired of seeing videos of or making the same old cutting boards or epoxy river tables? In this video, I'm going to take one piece of curly ambrosia maple, cut it into smaller pieces, texture them, and apply a beautiful three-part finish, creating a unique piece that's like nothing you've ever seen before. This entire build is made with simple tools most woodworkers should have. If you're looking to make some money, this is a great project to try yourself. So here we are, just one guy with his iPhone recording in the woodshop, a plan, some semi-fancy tools, and a sexy-ass piece of curly ambrosia maple. I gotta say, I'm very fortunate to live in a place where curly ambrosia maple is abundant. What is curly ambrosia maple? Well, maple is a hardwood. I know that for a fact. While I'm no wood expert, from what I hear, the curls come from big branches compressing the fibers in the wood. The ambrosia part, I'm pretty sure, comes from these little bugs that burrow their way into the wood to do sex and lay eggs. This causes the discoloration, I think. So the first thing I'm doing here is rip cutting this large piece of maple into smaller strips. Size really doesn't matter. I do some around an inch all the way up to a few inches wide. Once I have all my maple strips, I took them over to my oscillating spindle sander where I added a wavy texture to the edges. I should mention, I don't really think I recommend you giving your oscillating spindle sander a little hug like I did here. My goal in doing this is to try and complement the natural curls in the curly maple. After adding texture, I laid these pieces out and fit them in my template. This template is the same size as the mold I'm going to be using to pour the epoxy. I adjusted the pieces as needed to get the look I wanted. After marking them, I took the maple strips to my bandsaw and cut on the line. My client wanted 2 charcuterie boards. Unfortunately, I had plenty of wood to make both of the boards from one piece of curly ambrosia maple. I just used the cutoffs from the first one to make the second and repeated the process for the layout. These cuts could easily be made with a jigsaw. I only use a bandsaw because I have one and it's a little easier. If you're a woodworker that's looking to make a project that sells well, here you go. I've been asked to make charcuterie boards like these several times since I posted a short on my Instagram making a similar piece like this, and to be honest, if I wanted to, I could probably just crank out different variations of this same design and make pretty decent money on the side. Oh, hey.
Oh, sorry.
You're good.
I'm making an egg sandwich. Do you want one?
Yeah. If I'm being totally honest, that's not my goal with my woodworking business. I want to make unique pieces, and I love coming up with new ideas for charcuterie boards, tables, and wall art. And even more than that, I just love making these videos. So feel free to use this idea if you'd like to make your own and sell them. I think I spent maybe 30 bucks on wood and I don't know, 50 bucks on epoxy, and I sold these for $2.50 a piece. And I'm not saying that to brag. I truly think I price my items very fair considering the amount of time and effort I put into them, and most of the time and effort is spent in the finishing process, where I'm very diligent about finding any imperfection, and every time a piece leaves my shop, I make sure I do the absolute best job I can of making sure it's absolutely perfect for the customer. Here I'm mixing epoxy to fill in the gaps in the wood strips. I add a bit of black dye which offsets any potential yellowing and helps hide the minor imperfections in the resin. My intention here was to add 2 to 3 drops. It's really frustrating using this little dropper. I should probably find a different way to add this dye. There's 1 drop. The first drop's always easy. After that, it's just going to squirt out. So I ended up with 5 drops here. It looks dark. Once the drops are in there too, by the way, you can't get them out. It looks really dark here. When I pour it, you'll see it's not nearly that dark. And then I just need to make sure, because I'm doing these pours separately for each board, that I put the same amount, which is 5 drops, in the second pour that I do as well. And here I'm using a vacuum chamber to remove the bubbles from the epoxy before I pour it. I didn't clamp these pieces down during the initial pour just so you guys could see, but they started floating on me, which I knew was going to happen. I had this strip ready to go to clamp them down. This was a bit of a mistake, putting a strip across the entire piece like this. It ended up causing, I'll show you in a minute, bubbles in the resin. There's like little air pockets that are trying to escape that can't, that are on the underside of that piece of wood that's clamped down. And then this is a time lapse after the pour. The bubbles never stop coming out of the wood, basically. So there's gonna be spots I have to fix. That strip was like impossible to get off. You see me bang on it like 20 times here. I don't even know how I got it off, but I did. And here you can see the bubbles that got trapped underneath that piece of wood. So after doing this one, I came up with the solution on the second one. So here's live Trevor figuring it out on the fly. Look at me go. Look at that. What a good idea, right? Yeah, smart. I did go to college. If any of you guys were wondering, it's only 2 years, but I did go. It came out a lot better doing individual blocks instead of one solid strip. So here's these pieces after the pour. Of course, we got a fly here, okay, and then one over here. Kind of hard to see. No big deal. I'll probably just cut that edge off. Luckily, they landed on the edges. Gonna get to milling these up now. I ran these through my drum sander first just to get the high spots down. This is a new to me planer. This is a DeWalt 735 or whatever, the one that a lot of people get, the good one, with the helical head already installed. I got it used on Facebook Marketplace for like 300 bucks. I love that thing. It is so awesome. I had a Triton planer before with regular knives on it, and I would get chip out all the time. This DeWalt planer is so nice because it has two modes. There's one for dimensioning and one for finishing. It basically just changes the feed rate, so when you're working with a more figured wood, it won't chip out on the lower feed rate. And it's been a total game changer for me because my old Triton planer, you just get chip out no matter what. Even with new knives, a lot of times I would end up with chip out. So anyways, I got the ends cut off on my crosscut sled, and then I set up a stop block on my miter saw and cut both of these pieces to the same width. After I got these pieces all squared up, I addressed the bubbles left over from the epoxy pour. I ended up just filling these in with CA glue. You just want to be careful not to put too much CA glue in without using the activator. Some of these bubbles were kind of deep, so I had to put a little bit of CA glue in there, spray the activator, wait for it to cure, put a little more in there. But I got them all filled in, sanded down, and then I sanded the entire piece at 120 grit, 150, 180, water pop in between each grit. And then I did a round over on this piece at 180 grit. So I just mentioned that DeWalt planer I bought. I love. This is another Facebook Marketplace buy. It's a Triton router with a router table. This router sounded like it was about to blow up. And shortly after I did this round over, it started smoking. I wish I caught it on camera. You're just going to have to take my word for it. But I have since bought a new router lift and just a Bosch router, the same one that I've been using for a long time. But sometimes you get a real good deal on Marketplace, and sometimes you buy something that's very close to blowing up. I am engraving an F on one piece and a W on the other piece per the customer's request. This is my first time using my CNC, and I know if there's a CNC guy out there, you're probably scoffing at this little tiny engraving I'm doing, but this was super nerve-wracking for me. This is the first time I've done an engraving on a piece that I'm selling to a customer. All right. Yeah, let's say I'm pretty happy with the way that turned out. Big thank you to Genmitsu for sending me this CNC. This thing is really well built, and I've been having a lot of fun getting to learn how to use it, and there will be more CNC content coming soon. While the engravings came out nice, something I didn't factor in was the actual size difference of the letters and how big they would be on the piece, but more on that later. I'm filling in these engravings with tabletop epoxy and black diamond pigments Battleship Gray. After filling in these engravings and letting them cure for a couple days, I scraped off the excess epoxy with a carbide scraper and then switched pretty much immediately to my card scraper, which works so much better for stuff like this. The card scraper is an invaluable tool to me. I feel like I don't see guys using them enough. Link to the card scraper I use in the description, as well as all the other tools I use. This is simultaneously my favorite and least favorite part of any project, applying shellac. In my opinion, shellac adds depth and highlights a natural grain better than any other finish. It's also my opinion that shellac is by far the most difficult finish to apply by hand and requires several applications to simply achieve one coat that doesn't protect the wood as well as a single coat of hard wax finish. This is why I'm going to do a coat of oil-based polyurethane over top the shellac. The polyurethane is going to provide superior protection over the shellac and bump the finish up to a high gloss, making the epoxy nearly transparent, so you'll be able to see the textured edges of the maple. While a few coats of oil-based polyurethane will certainly help protect the piece, it will still be prone to scratching and water damage. This is where the ceramic coat will come in. More on that later. I'm not going to go super in depth on my process of applying the shellac. I could honestly do a whole 10-15 minute video on that. There's a lot that goes into it, and I still don't think that I've perfected my method of applying it, but I've gotten it to a point where I could get a really nice finish on the shellac. This is called teabagging. I take a little dabber and I mix it in the shellac that's cut with denatured alcohol, which is basically just like a watered down version of the shellac, which makes it easier to get a good finish. I'll explain in another video. If you guys are interested in seeing that, leave me a comment and I'll do a full video on this finish. And here is the oil-based polyurethane. This is General Finishes Armor Seal oil-based gloss. This stuff is incredible. If you ever use the Home Depot brand oil-based polyurethane, you would know it's freaking junk. This stuff is so easy to use. It like levels out by itself. It's a true joy to use, and you could probably use it by itself and get a really nice result here as well. But I do the same thing with the polyurethane, where I teabag that little dabber in there. After 3 coats of oil-based polyurethane, I sand up to 3000 grit, wet sanding, and then I ended up polishing this piece. This is kind of more like a 4-part finish, but whatever. I polish it with the 3M Perfect It kit, and then I apply the ceramic coating. These boards might be bulletproof. I wouldn't recommend trying to shoot them, but I'm just saying, they could be. This is the 3M Perfect It kit. It's just a rubbing compound. On a bigger piece, I like to use a polisher. These pieces are so small, I ended up just buffing them in by hand with a microfiber cloth. It's just a little easier and cleaner that way. It's a good arm workout too. But these pieces were looking really nice after polishing. For the ceramic coat, I'm using Blacktail Studios Nano Coat. This stuff's awesome. Really easy to apply. It's kind of pricey, but I can't really put a price on something that's going to help protect the finish that I spent this much time applying. Here's these pieces all finished up. One big mistake I did make was I didn't check where those engravings were going to end up with the handles. These handles stuck out further than I initially thought they did, and I didn't double check before I mounted the handles. So the handles ended up slightly covering up the engraving of the F. That was a mistake on my part, but I reached out to the customer, let her know about this, and I offered her to either cut that part of the board off, cut a couple inches off of the edge, re-engrave it in different locations on both pieces, and refinish it. So basically just resize the pieces. That was option one. Option two was different handles that wouldn't have gotten in the way of the engraving as much as these ones did. And option three was just a discount on these pieces, and the customer ended up going with option three, which I'm totally fine with. I don't mind giving a little discount for a mistake I made, and I was really happy to not have to remake these pieces because they really did come out nice. And yeah, so in the end, everyone was happy. I'm really pumped on how nice this finish came out. And like I said earlier, if you guys are interested in seeing this shellac polyurethane finish in a full video, like a full how-to on it, just leave me a comment, and if enough of you guys want to see that, I'll put out a full video. Thank you guys for watching, and go check out my other woodworking videos, and stay tuned. I got some more cool woodworking videos coming up soon. Thanks.